Hey guys! Been kind of busy this week, so this is just a quick shading tutorial with a couple tips. The best way that I found to do shading is to first select the area of the drawing you want to shade. In Krita, Control H hides your selection like this, so you don't even have to worry about seeing it. Make a new layer, set it to multiply, and lower the opacity. I believe it would still be called a multiply layer in most programs, but I know for sure that that's what it's called in Krita. The opacity level depends on the piece you're doing. The lower your opacity, the less obvious your shading is going to be. Mine tends to hover somewhere in the low 20 to 40% range, but I do change it up depending on what I'm doing. Now on to the more artsy side of things. The big tip that I always tell people is to be sure and shade in color. Take a look at this, for instance, with black shading, and now with colored shading. Usually I just put my shading color to a complementary color, something that matches pretty well with the drawing I'm doing. The way that you can do this is that you can shade in whatever color you want, and then same with the line art. Once you're done shading, you can lock that layer and then go over it with a different color. Sometimes you can use the shading color for dramatic effect though, like using red shading to make someone seem evil. Using color for your shading and your lighting just helps your piece pop so much more. Another thing to remember is to be a little bit more bold with your shading, especially on parts of your dragon that are further back. I know it's hard to get used to being a little bolder with how you shade these areas, but it will end up working in your favor, trust me. If they're a little bit darker, it naturally points your mind's eye away from the background limbs and towards the more important parts of the piece. Knowing where to shade something just comes from time and repetition. Sometimes it helps to draw an arrow showing where your light is coming from, and that'll help you keep things consistent. Usually, if I'm just doing a piece that doesn't have a background, I'll just take an angle from the upper left or right corner. It's kind of a natural lighting angle just so that I have something to kind of point my shading with. If it's a scene drawing though, you would need to think about things like where are your light sources. So whether, that's backlighting, or if the light is coming from above, or if you're getting light from underneath, like if someone's, holding a flashlight underneath their face. So you have to take into consideration where your light source is coming from, because that's going to direct where your shadows go. You can also find references with other art, for instance, like if someone else always shades that little triangle under the chin, that's a good sign that you should try that too. With lighting, you can use an overlay or addition layer depending on what you're going for. And I do think that these are called different things in different programs. I only use Krita, so I really only know what they're called in Krita, but I think that's a fairly common name for this type of layer. I tend to do lighting with either a golden color or sometimes a light pink or purple, depending on the mood I'm going for in the piece. While it's good to be bold with your shading, highlights are more often a good area to have restraint in until you get the hang of it. Highlights are meant to be a finishing touch, not something to lean heavily on unless you're drawing a fully shaded scene piece. That's going to wrap this quick tutorial up. I get a lot of questions about shading, so hopefully this helps answer some of those for y'all. I know this was pretty quick, but there's not a ton I have to say about it besides keep experimenting and see what works best for you. I know that it's not really the answer anybody's ever looking for, but practice is really what's going to make perfect for y'all. Repetition is, after all, the mother of learning. Be sure to check out the description if you have any questions, or feel free to comment them below. Thanks for watching, and I hope everyone has a wonderful week.